Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is the Chronicles of Apple from the apple of my eye, and I am doing this video for the first time in so many years of doing Hudna1. So, I've done a YouTube videos before, and I named it Hudna1 because Hudna in Arabic means a truce, and it's basically a bit of a deceptive truce. And so, for some odd reason, because I was trying to reach out to the Muslims, I wanted to give them the word called truce, which is Hudna. And right now, well, I've been doing videos off of Facebook and just funneling it to um, the IDF and Netanyahu because I pledged my life to be in support of Israel over the fact that I know that Jesus Christ laid his life for us in Israel, and this is what the Bible is all about. So, um, I am doing this video because I had been letting people know that the universities had gone into a supposed riot, and all these riots all over the university is basically a distraction for the world to not pay attention to what is going on in Iran. So Iran, for the last, 50 some years since 1979, had been, since I was 3 years old, technically, Iran has basically been run by the Islamic Caliphate. And this Islamic regime had practically destroyed every progress that the Iranian people have had for centuries. And they just went backwards. Completely went backwards. And right now, I'm doing this video for several reasons. One, for Israel. Two, for the United States. And three, for the Philippines. I am born and raised in the Philippines, but I've been in the United States and I love the Western civilization. Filipinos are actually migratory people who had inhabited the islands over the fact that during the Islamic invasion all over Asia, many people from the different islands like Indonesia and Malaysia wanted to take refuge away from the Muslim people, thereby moving into another island that is not yet populated and had a handful of people, and they are the indigenous Aitas. They are considered the black pygmies. And I'm saying that with due respect to these people, my ancestors, because they are the ones that received the Malayans and Indonesians, and they cohabitated with them, along with all the resources of the island of the Philippines. And it was not yet the island of the Philippines. It was just like islands that's basically situated there for people to take refuge in during the time. And God, I believe, destined for those islands to be there, while a lot of the Asian people are basically getting massacred for the purpose of religious ideologies. So this religious ideology that had hit Iran so badly, it started out with the universities getting poisoned with ideologies of Islam. And then it has spread. And then the next thing you know, they had to get rid, they took out the king. And I am not a history major, but with what I know of Iran, it is really heart-wrenching because a lot of these people, even in my time, especially back in 2011, I have seen a lot of people trying to forge a way to have a revolution in Iran. And it is surprising to me that because Iran has poured in so much money, Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, so on and so forth, this Muslim Brotherhood. So Hamas is the byproduct of a Muslim Brotherhood from Egypt. And it is heavily funded by Iranian money, and a lot of the money that is poured into those entities, those terroristic entities, had practically um, caused such serious damage in Israel through the years. And they got so strong, this Hamas group that's branched straight out of Muslim Brotherhood um, has totally plagued the Arab people in Israel. And it basically, the Hamas that is funded by Iran basically massacred so many Palestinians, that are, hold on, I'm just getting some glitches here with WebRoot. Um, the Hamas basically developed as a government for the Arab people, which is technically called Palestinians. Okay, so they are Palestinians or Arab people. Some of them are migratory workers, some of them may be indigenous Arabs, but for the most part, those Arabs that have an Islamic ideology were basically governed by the terroristic entity called Hamas. And Hamas has done nothing but create havoc, indoctrinated the people, the Arabs in Israel, to become a group of people that will decimate the Jewish people and the Christian people in Israel and annihilate that particular state. They don't want they wanted to take over Israel. So it is surprising to me that you could tell, like right now, like when I saw that finally how Iran went after Israel and caused a barrage of missiles, missile guided rockets, of over 300 of them, basically pummeling into Israel, but most of it, 50% of those missiles failed to launch, while the ones that actually tried to infiltrate Israel is basically intercepted by the Iron Dome. So interestingly, the damage that Iran tried to perform into Israel is the same amount of damage that was done, they claim, as what Russia did to Ukraine, is the same exact barrage of atrocity that Iran itself tried to perform upon Israel at that moment. Okay, so that was just like a month ago, basically. And when they went after Israel, it is surprising that there is barely any damage. I mean, there was just a handful of things that had taken place. Most of it was intercepted, and in fact sometimes landed and not out of target, meaning if they were trying to get to Israel, they ended up in Jordan. If they're trying to get if it's coming from Lebanon, it ended up in Lebanon. And so this is the hand of God. Okay, this is the hand of God. Now, once Iran failed to perform their surprise attack, which is not really a surprise attack, when they had failed to cause much damage to Israel, the powers that be, which I believe is a shadow government that is trying to create this global Islamic invasion, okay, what they did is that they poured out the money and anything possible to have the universities in the United States be the distracting force. So all of a sudden, there is a concerted effort for all of the universities in the United States to be having riots over the fact that they support Hamas so badly. Let us support Hamas. And so this kind of stuff that was happening, it is obviously very fake. And I had warned people before that the orchestration of these universities is totally funded for, and they are not grassroots. And I'm only saying that because I've observed what has taken place, even when is it, around 2005 2006. 2006, 2007, there were a lot of riots all over Europe, refugees, movement of migrants all over Europe. It is totally, I mean, there's all this racial tension and so on and so forth. And I was observing this and I'm like, this looks so artificial. Who is bringing these people in and how are they supported? And I know that they are basically destabilizing countries. So at that point, I was trying to get to Italy, and I backed down on going to Italy the first time because if I would have gone, it would have been just complete chaos. And then there was flood that took place, and there were like riots on the street, and then I found out later on that this is artificially there is a concerted effort to create these riots to destabilize Italy at that time. And when I saw the universities doing this particular thing, I was very, very suspicious because I knew that just like George Floyd and all of these racial tensions happening all over the United States, it is for the purpose of actually destabilizing the United States. And this is something that these shadow governments do from time to time. They wanted to have control over the people through mainstream media. So everybody has to now be worried about all the universities causing all kinds of riot in supposed support for Hamas. And it is eventually found, and I had my suspicion, and I told them this is heavily funded, okay, uh, by entities that is particularly involved in the pandemic and the propagation of this pandemic disease on COVID-19. It's the same thing. It's the same attack in a different form. Okay, so because Iran is not capable of showing any prowess, okay, they have to artificially create a situation where all of the universities are supposedly in support of Hamas, which is not really true. I think when you account for all of the universities in the United States, the Ivy League universities and all the riots that's taking place there, because it is artificially being performed, is not a true representative of how American universities truly are. That's just my personal opinion. And then sure enough, they made an announcement that this is heavily funded by Bill Gates, the Rockefellers, Soros, Qatar, and so on. And not only was that the case, now the spotlight is to make it look like Iran is doing fine. And Iran is sort of like in control, even though in Israel it is very obvious that Hamas is losing ground continually, okay? And Israel is doing their part for the humanitarian aid. And I am very clear on all those 4 times I've been to Israel that the ones walking on eggshells are not the Muslim people, but the Jewish people. Jewish people cannot go to Temple Mount. They cannot just go and hang out in Hebron. They don't just hang out in Bethlehem for the reason that there are much more Arab in there, and there is a lot of discrimination against Jewish people. And those are like not a go-to place for a lot of them. All of the areas that are predominantly more Arab. Okay, and when I say Arab, it's what we considered today as the Palestinians. So one thing people do not understand is that the Palestinians are not all indigenous to the state of Israel. Many of them are contract workers from the time of the British Empire that took over Israel after the Ottoman Empire lost in the First World War. Okay, so it was the British mandate, and then the British mandate, and I finally pieced it together. From the British mandate, it's after, the British mandate took over the Ottoman Empire control over Israel, and then later on, there was a man named Wiseman. Chaim Weizmann, and he approached this man, the Prime Minister of England, named Lloyd George. I think maybe even David. So anyhow, this Prime Minister had a Christian background, and when he was approached by Chaim Weizmann that the Jewish people need a place to live because of the war that has taken place and the displacement of Jewish people is already starting. This man, during the time of the British Mandate, made some type of a pledge with a man of a Jewish background to provide the land of Israel back for the Jewish people. And as you can tell, there has never been a precedent for the Palestinian government ever, because the word Palestine was apparently a name as a mockery given by the Romans when they took over Israel. Okay, and the name just stuck. But as you can tell, all of the Bible mentions Israel, Israel, Israel. In fact, that is also the name of Jacob. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Jacob became Israel, and that is something that the Lord, like a name, a nickname given to Jacob. And it's basically his tribes, and from the children of Jacob, the fourth one is named Judah, and that is what Judea. Okay, so that country of Israel, all over the Old Testament, is promised by God for a particular group of people, which we call now as the Jewish people. When we say Jewish people, it actually doesn't, it basically signifies any tribe of Israel, not just from the line of Judah. Okay, but the line of Judah is pivotal because from the line of Judah is where Jesus Christ is going to come from. So, number 4, okay, the fourth son. So, Israel is a constant reminder for the entire world that God destined his only begotten Son to redeem the souls of men and redeem us from all of our sins. And because of this, later down the line, past I think 700 AD, okay, 632 maybe around that time, Muhammad came into power. He was illiterate. Nothing was written about the Quran. But Muhammad was determined to have an influence on the Jewish people in Medina. And when he failed to influence the Jewish people, he basically went after them with a sword to convert them. And in order to influence the Jewish people, he had extracted verses of the Bible, even though he's illiterate. He's extracted these things to kind of lure them in. That's why in the Quran there are verses from the Bible in order to influence Jewish people. The Christian people is already growing at the time, and it's not until past the time that Muhammad had died that somewhere in the 700 AD is when the Quran was developed. So look at the number of years it has taken, and this new religion called Islam was taking the world by force through the sword. Okay, so it is a conquest by sword, which is why eventually by the 1600s, around that time, all over Asia, we are already getting plagued with this Islamic ruling that has brought many people from Indonesia and Malaysia to run to other islands like the Philippines. And like I said, you know, I want to do this video in particular because right now, okay, so even though they had staged riots, okay, it became pretty much exposed that this is not organic, this is not grassroots development, it is not like the 60s. These are indoctrination within the Ivy League schools, and I call them the poison ivies, okay? Their curriculum is so plagued and corrupt. They're basically receiving money from Qatar and all these other entities to stage a destabilization of the United States. Okay? But when you look at the number of Americans that are in favor of Israel to win this war, it's about 85% of the US in favor of Israel and what they're doing to fight terrorism. The universities are acting as though the United States is pledging with Hamas. Okay, and they did that because they see that Iran's regime is going down the drain. Um, I do believe that much of the failed um, failed missiles, these missiles that failed to launch, is due to the poor morale of the people in Iran. They probably leaked all the information of this attack coming from Iran. They are probably like doing something to create like, these rockets to fail to launch. And there is just, even in the cabinetry, I believe, of Iran, there was a lot of implosion taking place already. Okay. And this is happening, I believe, because the Iranian people, many of them are becoming Christians, and they are praying and they are against the annihilation of Israel. Because, first and foremost, the money from the government of Iran, which is run by these thugs, okay, these terrorists within the Islamic Caliphate, okay, they are only as powerful as the people would fear them, okay? But the growing number of Christians in Iran is a clear indication that the Iranian government is having to deal with a very strong um, opposition within the people of Iran. The people of Iran doesn't get the money that Hamas gets, okay? They do not get the money that the Houthis get, okay? They are not getting the money that the Hezbollah is getting. And then the United States, having quote unquote funded Iran, Iranian government is the Islamic regime that is totally hated by Iranian people at this point. And the reason I knew that is because I've come across so many Iranian people that have escaped Iran, and they tell me stories about what their families are going through in Iran and how they are surviving. So basically, a lot of the Iranian men, in order to protect the women from the modesty police or whatever, um, people that kind of like are policing the women if they are not wearing a hijab or whatever it is, they basically go after these women, and then the family are no longer becoming Islamic. So I believe that in order to deflect the attention from um, the implosion of the Iranian government, this Islamic um, the Islamic government in Iran, it is imploding, and in order to take away attention from that is the reason that they had staged this nationwide university riots. Okay, so there are these professional rioters. I don't know what part of the world they come from or whatever hole from the ground they come out of. Their job is to basically riots. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's a racial tension, it doesn't matter if it's some kind of a Asian tension, you name it, Black Lives Matter and all that. These professional rioters come out to cause this kind of havoc, and their job is basically to create a destabilization of the United States. Okay, so interestingly, the the president of Iran and a foreign minister, I think, um, crashed. Okay, and guess what? Now the Iranian people are so happy. They are celebrating because the man that died, um, that prime minister, whoever he is, they call him the Butcher of Tehran. The Butcher of Tehran had died, and therefore a lot of the people are celebrating in Iran. And this particular um, revolution is not just a revolution; it is a revival of Iran. And interestingly, there is there was a prophecy in the Bible, and I just gotta get to it. There's a prophecy in the Bible. So if you were to look at the name Elam, the Bible talks about this one particular place called Elam, E-L-A-M. Elam, Elam, it's interesting that there is a man named Elam. Elam is the father of Jehiel and the grandfather of Shechaniah in Ezra 10:2. So that means that Elam is a Jewish name, okay, to say the least. But Elam was a region in the Near East corresponding to the modern-day provinces of Elam and Khuzestan in southern Iran, though it also included part of modern-day southern Iraq, whose civilization spanned thousands of years from 3200, before Christ. What is the meaning of Elam? Elam means eternity, hidden, highlands. Origin is Hebrew. Elam is a boy's name, meaning eternity or hidden or highlands could remind your little one of their faith and spirituality. In my language, Elam sounds like Alam is to know. Elam was destroyed in 639 BC. The conquest of Elam by Neo-Assyrian Empire took place between 655 and 639 BC. So we're gonna examine this Bible. It's called Jeremiah 49. I was showing this to a friend of mine who's Iranian. Jeremiah 49. There's one is called Ammon. The Ammonites, I think, might be Jordan. So if you go to Jeremiah 49:39, just gonna get to that part. Okay. This is Jeremiah 49:34, the word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah the prophet against Elam. Elam in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah king of Judah, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Behold, I will break the bow of Elam, the cheap of their might, and upon Elam will I bring the four winds from the four quarters of heaven, and will scatter them towards all those winds, and there will be no nation whither the outcasts of Elam shall not come. For I will cause Elam to be dismayed before their enemies. So who is the enemies of Elam? Okay, so Elam will be dismayed before their enemies. They're going to be put to shame by their enemy, and before them that seek their life. The ones that they are seeking. So it sounds like Elam, this nation, goes after a particular enemy whose lives they are after. Okay, So in that place of Elam, which is the southern part of Iran, also part of the modern day Iraq, okay, this particular area has a particular enemy whose lives that they are trying to get rid of. And I will bring evil upon them. But then God will bring evil upon this area, which is Elam, which is part of Iran, a southern part of Iran. And it even says, even my fierce anger, saith the Lord, and I will send the sword after them till I have consumed them. And I will set my throne in Elam and will destroy. Okay, God is going to set his throne in Elam in the southern part of Iran and will destroy from thence the king and princess, saith the Lord. But it shall come to pass in the latter days that I will bring again the captivity of Elam, saith the Lord. So somebody is going to capture Elam, and that is the modern day Iran. Iran right now is taking control of Iraq because the United States didn't do their job in securing Iraq. So now it fell into the hands of Iran, and Iran is so happy that the United States has practically handed over Iraq to them. Okay, but they're going to be put to shame. And in fact, this one says, in the latter days, I will bring again the captivity of Elam. So at one point in history, the Old Testament talked about how Iran is put to shame, you know, the enemies that they were after. Okay, so there is, there Iran's enemy, the lives of those people they were after. Iran is after the lives of a particular enemy. But then God defends this enemy and basically took away the power of Elam, the Iranian, okay, entity. And it even says, and this is like it's going to be repeated. So what had happened in the Old Testament is repeated again in the latter days. So the latter days is practically now. So as you can tell, there is going to be, I don't just call it a revolution. There is a revival of Iran, and there is a particular window where the people of Iran is going to be able to escape their Islamization. And so anyway, now that the president of Iran and this, I believe, prime minister, let's take a look at this real quick. Okay, it says here, celebration outside Iran embassy in London. Okay, and then President Raisi dead in helicopter crash. Okay, and they are filming it, and you could see that it's such bad weather, and apparently this bad weather went from foggy to a full-blown snow in May. Okay, May. So what is next after this crash in Iran? Okay, is this the act of God? Okay, there is speculation that this is being done by the Mossad, although it is very clear that there is a strange weather happening. Okay, strange weather happening, and there's also this biblical prophecy about Elam. So to me, and as much as I know that they're going to want to blame it on Israel and everything, that it's a staged assassination or whatever, but it is very clear from the Bible that God himself is going to go after this land. Okay, they're just that bad, and God eventually just hated it so much that he will practically take the sides of their enemy, which is practically Israel. The enemy of Iran is Israel. So anyway, there is so much going on here, and like I said, all of the university riots that had taken place are all staged for the purpose of taking away attention from what is happening there in Iran. So anyway, I'm gonna end it right here. Thank you and God bless. And we will be praying for the revival of Iranian people and the deliverance from Islam. So thank you and God bless.